let's kind of get an overview from you of where this Sixer team stands after the first 2 weeks of free agency.
Well, there was a reason that I put a poll out yesterday on Twitter asking how people rank the teams in the top of the East, 2 through 4 or 5, just to see where they felt about the Sixers relative to the Knicks and other competition. I think one person did not have the Sixers in the top 4, and according to their Twitter profile, it was because they were very low on the Paul George signing, which to each their own. I think the betting markets are certainly higher on the Paul George edition, and I think all the major national talking heads are very high on the move. But I think most people view the Sixers as a team that is right there in the mix for 2, 3 in the East. I certainly think they're going to finish at least 2 or 3. The Knicks, they get Bridges, and as great and all. I think the addition of Caleb Martin last weekend was a sneaky huge one for them. Not only because they got a wing that is a defensive minded, dog out there. He is also on one of the best value contracts in the NBA. Like ESPN released an article today where they called Caleb Martin signing with the Sixers for the value that he did one of basically the heists of the offseason. And then they put one of the head scratchers of the offseason being Caleb Martin signing with the Sixers for the deal that he got. So there is some backhanded, your agent messed up type stuff going on there. But bottom line, the Caleb, I think, brings the Sixers a good bit closer to New York in terms of just being able to defend the Knicks. And then offensively, I trust the Sixers 1 through 3, more than I trust the Knicks to find ways to create primary offense outside of Jalen Brunson. So I think, assuming health, I would pick the Sixers right now as the second best team in the East. That might even be to say the second best team in the league when you consider that Denver took a big hit with losing KCP, with the Lakers, their big offseason addition being Bronny James and Dalton Connect, and then the Clippers going on whatever that was that they did, where they lost Paul George and then signed a bunch of nice role players to complement Kawhi Leonard, who is now out of the Olympics because of concerns. So the West is clearly not. I think there's some beastly powers in the West, but I think the top of the East might be the ones dictating who wins the championship next season, and I think that is firmly the Sixers are firmly in that pool.
Austin Krell, 97.3 ESPN.com covers the Sixers. You mentioned the Caleb Martin move, and last Wednesday, right before the 4th of July, I said, man, if they could figure out a way to get him here, I just figured it would be way too much money. What happened there? How did they get him, and how does he fit into this team? Because, he's not really a 4. He's a little undersized to be a guy who's going to be, that guy that – I think when fans hear the 4, they think of this guy that rebounds and does a lot of that kind of stuff, but they don't really have that guy still. So is he a starter on this team? Where does he fit in? And how did they end up getting him?
So he opted out of his deal because he and his agent felt like he could get more on the open market than the $55 or $60 million, whatever it was that Miami was offering before he opted out. And once he opted out, the Heat didn't have the resources to really keep him if his market got that high. And I think there was a mistake in in his agent's calculation of what he was worth on the market, and he ended up having to take $30 million 1 year less than what he would have gotten in Miami. I don't think that's necessarily a walk away from the table with your head down type thing. I think what that serves as is a lesson as to where the NBA is headed. The middle class, the role players, high-level role players under this new CBA with the second apron, they are getting pushed and they're getting smushed and being forced to take exactly what teams think they're worth and there are not going to be overpays for role players anymore. And you're going to have your stars that make the max. You're going to have role players whose markets are really compressed to really not leave much airspace. And then you're going to have guys that are fringes or back end of the rotation guys who are going to be making minimums instead of the $5 million deals, whatever you might have. I also think that you're going to see things like what they're talking about with KJ Martin, where you have a young player with a low capital, where you can give him a balloon payment type deal and then use him as trade bait later on in the season. The big move comes. But I think Caleb being here is more. I wouldn't call it an accident necessarily, but I think it's a product of this new age that we're in with the CBA, where you have this second apron, all of this fear about what overpaying for players means to your team's finances and the restrictions that might come with that. And the Sixers have benefited from that. And in terms of him playing power forward, I hear the argument. I get what people are saying. I would also say this. The Knicks were defending Joel Embiid in the playoffs with OG Anunoby. And the Celtics switch, 1 through 4, 1 through 5, what have you. The traditional thinking is kind of gone and out the window. You don't defend players straight up anymore. You find guys that can dig into the floor and get underneath them and really, disrupt them. And that is how teams envision themselves getting stops now. And Caleb at 6'5" can certainly do that. This is a very long team on the perimeter now with both height and wingspan. Tyrese at 6'2" or whatever he might be is now by far the smallest guy in the projected starting five. They're going to treat this as we have our three stars in Joel, Tyrese, and Paul George, and then we have two wings next to Paul George that we can toggle between defensive assignments as we see fit. So I think this roster is not meant to adhere to traditional positions right now as we speak. Now, if they go and they make a trade for a more traditional power forward, that will tell you what they really feel about it. But right now they're saying, look, we got our wings, we got length, we're happy to gamble on that being enough to match up. We don't care about matching up inch for inch with height. We're going to bet on athleticism and wingspan to get rebounds, to get stops.
And, you wonder, because Caleb Martin, very good role player with those Heat teams. He actually was a better scorer in the playoffs than he has been in the regular season. He's the kind of guy that I guess you figure he can match up with those wings. He's that guy that you've really been lacking over the years, who can match up with a Tatum or a Brown, a wing player. If you play New York now, they got a couple of wings that you're going to have to figure out, with OG and obviously Bridges and Brunson out there as well. So it adds another athletic wing defender to the team here. So you have George, you got Drummond in here. They brought back Oubre. Obviously, they got Eric Gordon. Is there something else that still they can do, or are they going to wait and kind of, figure this out, once the season starts?
I think you wait a little bit. It sounds like they're going to sign a Dem Bana, who's had a terrific start to the summer league. I think they're going to sign him to a standard deal instead of a two-way deal. Under the new CBA, you don't have to, you don't have to feel as pressured to put second-round picks on two-way contracts, because there is an exception, quite literally, for second-round picks to be signed. So they're going to give him a standard deal, it sounds like. I would keep my eye on Kyle Lowry and see what happens with him. There was a rumor the other day that he might be in talks with Phoenix. I think it speaks volumes that Eric Gordon dropped his player option and left Phoenix to come to the Sixers. Maybe Kyle Lowry wants more playing time, and that's something that Phoenix can offer him. And if so, then okay. But a guy like, Tyus Jones is still on the market. I don't know that he would take a minimum, and that's really all the Sixers have left. But, at some point, if you wait it out, a guy like that is going to have to say, well, either I take the minimum and get more attention playing for a good team that is on national TV, or I hold out and don't play in the NBA this season. So, but that's certainly a guy who I think is one of the best backup point guards in the league. And it's kind of surprising to me that he's still on the market. I think they could use a little bit more side forward. That isn't me saying I don't believe in the idea of them starting Oubre, George, and Martin, but I just think like Martin is your only is the only guy at that position right now. So you might want to add some depth there. But I mean, they have 4 roster spots they have to fill. It could be as simple as they bring back Covington on a minimum, Lowry on a minimum, and some other guys. But I wouldn't even I wrote this in my game piece last night watching the summer league. It would make a lot of sense if you say, you know what, Jeff Houghton is a guy who is not getting clearly multi-year contract offers. He's playing summer league basketball, but he knows Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse knows him and obviously likes him. Maybe we can get him on a minimum and just fill out the back end of our roster that way. But I definitely think they need some ball handling still and some secondary guard play behind Tyrese.
Yeah, I know. You take a look at the summer league, and we'll get into the summer league a little bit here because I want to get some thoughts on that. You take a look at some of the guys that have, been, the draftees. Obviously, there's a couple veterans out there that really haven't played all that much. So you're wondering, are any of these guys on the summer league? And one in particular would be Ricky Council. Did any of those guys have a potential role, rotational role on this team? So if we're telling anybody, hey, watch the summer league. Forget about the rookies. Everybody wants to see what McCain does. You mentioned Bona. But the other guys, are there any guys that people should keep their eye on that could have a role, a rotational role potentially? And it may be a small one.
Ricky, I think, given that, they're just a little bit, thin towards the middle of that roster. I think Ricky has a chance just because of his athleticism, his ability to attack the basket and make plays off the bounce and get rebounds. He's certainly been dominant thus far in summer league, and that three-point shot looks improved. So those are the things you would look for a guy who has a chance to break into the rotation. I still don't think the Sixers have a ton of equity in him per se because he's an undrafted free agent. They don't feel pressure to be like, yeah, we got to have him playing and improving his worth now. He might be a year 2, maybe more likely year 3 he breaks in. McCain, I think, has struggled a little bit in this summer league. I don't think I would like to see him shoot the ball more just to see what, the mechanics look like, to see how comfortable he is, to see him experiment a little more. And just to see that there's more ball handling there. I mean, he shot 1 for 9 last night and had 0 assists with 1 turnover. So that's not promising. And I think he's been thoroughly outplayed by Bona. And I don't expect Bona to be a significant rotation player unless they're playing him power forward. I think McCain, who was drafted 16th overall, they might have a little bit of investment with him to say, yeah, we should give him some minutes. But I think really, like Daryl Morey said, there is a skill that he has in the shooting that might get him on the floor quicker. But by and large, they're going to be a more veteran team. And I don't think really the summer league team has many guys that have a prayer of getting rotation minutes. But the best player in the summer league team, if it's not Ricky, and he kind of has an outside chance, I think. If it's not Ricky, I think it's got to be Adem Bona, who might play some minutes when Embiid sits because Drummond then becomes your starting big, and then you need someone to back him up.
We're talking with Austin Krell from 97.3 ESPN.com. Yeah, I kind of agree with that assessment. Council, because the one thing that's interesting about Council is people liked him last year, and he didn't really get much of a shot last year, and you wonder if he's going to be in the same situation. So what I asked, did the team say to him, hey, go work on your shot? And the first night he comes out and hits 50% of his threes, and it's like, hey, you told me to go work on my shot. I hit 50% of my threes. Now that's only one game. But if he comes to camp with a shot, I guess I would agree that he's probably the one guy that maybe, based on where they are with their roster right now, what do they still have 2 spots left?
They have so they have technically, I think it's 2 or 3 incomplete roster charges that they have to fill in. So they are literally being charged for not filling in at least 2 more spots. But they have to, by the regular season, have 14 guys on the roster and maintain 14 guys basically throughout the regular season. Yeah, you can have 2 weeks where you don't have 14, but you really need to have 14. So they need to fill out, it's like 4 more spots. Ricky has done all the right things thus far. He's shown an improvement on that shot. He's getting to the free throw line. I mean, the ticket to getting noticed when you're one of these non-lottery pick guys in the summer league is to take what you learned in year one and really apply it between the end of the season and the summer league, and then really make it obvious that you're the best player on the team in summer league. Tyrese Maxey did that a couple of years ago, and he was just basically dismissed for some camp or thing that he had to attend to, and was never seen again in summer league. They were like, yeah, we've seen enough. Like, he's ready to go. He's ready to play right now for our team. So the ticket is to really dominate. And Ricky had a tough game against Memphis 2 nights ago after having 29 against the Thunder in the first game. The third day in a row they played last night, and he comes out and he looks like he's still the best player on the team. He's tacking off the dribble, and he's still super bouncy. So, I think their athleticism and length will always get you on the floor. I just don't know that unless things are looking bad and they're injured, if they have a reason to look down at Ricky if they continue to add, veteran minimum guys to this team. Because if you're a veteran minimum, part of the selling point is like, yeah, you're not getting paid that much, but you're going to have a chance to get rotation minutes on a team that's competing for a championship.
Yeah.
So that's Marcus Morris, that's Kyle Lowry, what have you. Those guys would all figure to spot ahead of a guy like Ricky Council, who doesn't have a lot of equity with the franchise yet.
I said the other day, Maxey as a rookie averaged 15 points in 15 minutes, 8 points. Is that too lofty of a hope for Jared McCain?
15 minutes, 8 points. No, I don't think they're necessarily too lofty. I think they play different games. Like, Maxey, when he came in, was a speedster floater type guy, and they wanted him to get all the way to the rim. But that 3-point shot was not close to being ready yet, and now he's a sniper. McCain is going to be inherently different because he comes in as a shooter. So, if he's playing some garbage time minutes or playing a couple minutes here and there, he's going to throw in a 3 every once in a while. And, he's going to have games where he has 10, he'll have games where he has 12, and most of them are in garbage time. He'll have games where he doesn't play at all. So I think 15 minutes a game, 8 points is a reasonable expectation for a guy who is shooting a lot of threes if he comes in and does that.
We'll see. Yeah, he's a guy who, if he can come in, play 15 minutes, hit a couple of threes, much like when Maxey was young. I mean, he didn't shoot the 3 all that well. He was more explosive and would get to the bucket real fast, get you like 3-4 buckets in 15 minutes, and then that kind of expanded his role in year number 2. If McCain can, show that he can shoot that 3 in those 15 to 17 minutes, yeah, that would be a huge addition there. Talking to Eric Gordon yesterday, he said his favorite shot on the court is the wing 3, and I just picture the offense
Mine too.
What? Yeah, yours too. Yeah. I like the corner 3 actually. I'm a little better in the deep corner is where I like to go, but he said his favorite's the wing 3, and I'm thinking of all of the wing 3 looks that Patrick Beverly and or Kyle Lowry had last year. And I'm thinking if Eric Gordon gets those same wing 3 looks, he could have a really big year.
Yeah. That's going to be his job, to adhere to his role on the team and, be happy with that role. Because he has had times where he's been like very obviously upset with either the direction of the team or his role on the team. So if he comes in and he embraces being, a bench shooter, he's going to get a lot of open shots in the wing. And the more he can stretch out things for Joel and be available, the better. I think one of the benefits of having guys like him, having guys that are veteran shooters out on this team, indirectly, it's for Jared McCain because, it's very easy for rookies to hit standstill catch and shoot threes when they're towing the line. When you're shooting off movement or you're relocating and you're having to adjust to the NBA distance, you're missing shots short a lot. And then as you adjust, you overcorrect and you're shooting shots long. And so you kind of struggle. So like rookies typically tend to struggle shooting the ball when they first start because they're adjusting and then they're over adjusting. And then they're trying to catch up conditioning wise. So I think having a veteran like Eric Gordon who has that distance to his shot and can shoot it in live action is super, super helpful. And he's not going to need a ton of touches. He's just going to catch it. He's going to go up quickly.
And last year, by the way, he still shot 38%. He played 27 minutes a game last year, so it's not a guy who thinks he's going to have some diminished role. He said yesterday he came here, legitimately thinks this team is good enough to win. He talked about some of the Sixers' failures from the past. He said, I always thought they were good enough, but they just might be missing that something. And he's a guy who's not afraid of the big shot and the big moment. So it'll be interesting to see how this all comes together. And we'll see if Nick Nurse has another move up his sleeve. If he does, Austin Krell will have it covered over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Thanks, Austin.
No problem. Thank you.